Marina, thank you so much for taking the time out and calling in here with us.
That is so funny that you should play that song as an intro, because my husband plays in a Steely Dan tribute band.
You are kidding.
No.
Would it be called Steely Jam by chance?
They are called Steely Jam by chance.
That was him singing.
Oh, that was him.
That was him. I like to do my homework.
Oh, my God. Oh, guys, he's going to be so chuffed when I tell him. That's so cute. Thank you.
Alrighty, so Marina Sirtis, Miss
Yes.
Deanna Troi, asking you to describe your time on Star Trek, which is 172 episodes and 4 movies.
Oh, really? Was it that? I never know the number. I know the number of the movies because I'm not, an idiot, but I couldn't remember the number of the episodes.
172. Yeah, and that goes across the entire franchise, including your cameos on Voyager.
Okay.
So asking you to describe your time on Star Trek would be nearly impossible. I'm not even going to do that. But after 30 years, this is now the 30th anniversary of Star Trek The Next Generation, is it possible to find one word that would describe that experience for you?
Perfect.
Oh.
It was perfect.
Okay, now we can elaborate a little bit. Perfect.
Right. Okay, well, it was perfect because I worked with the best people ever in the history of show business. And I was playing a character that was a challenge because she was the opposite of me. So it was an acting challenge, which, of course, every actor wants. And I got to become part of pop culture.
What do you think the biggest challenge in playing Deanna Troi was?
Oh, totally keeping Marina out of her. Because, no, honestly, she's way sweeter than me. She's much nicer than I am. You can ask Michael Dorn that. He will corroborate. Actually, you can ask any of my cast, and they will corroborate. Yeah, it was really, I'm kind of wacky and zany, and she was not any of the above. So, and I actually am not as sweet as her. I'm much more judgmental. So, yeah, it was really being true to her and not cheating and going, I'll just do what Marina would do,
No, when The Next Generation was first announced, and even through its first season, I think it's fairly safe to say that the critics and fans were not amused. They were not impressed.
No, hated us. They hated us.
All of the comparisons back to, well, it's not Kirk, it's not Spock, it's not this, it's not that. And now it's pretty safe to say that Discovery is going through the same experience. It's being just lashed by the fans and the critics. No one is really impressed. Even the trailer that's come out, no one's really amused. In fact, we actually had a segment on the show a few weeks back as to whether or not people were looking more forward to the Seth MacFarlane comedy kind of Star Trek show that was coming out. And when reading the critics and comments from the fans, are you seeing the comparison there, kind of having a flashback to 1987?
Well, to be honest, I have to tell you guys, I don't really keep up with what's happening online about anything, to be honest. So it's not just a Star Trek thing. I have a real thing about the internet, so I don't go to my computer very much. I think that if they are going through what we went through, hopefully history will repeat itself. I think basically with us, people waited until the show came out. There was a lot of grumbling beforehand. And the one question, I think we met every newspaper on the planet in the junkets that we had to do before the show started. And their number one question was, who's the new Spock? And then we would spend the next 10 minutes explaining that actually there wasn't a Spock or any variation of Spock. And, you could actually make Star Trek without that character. And then when we actually came out, the fans were not impressed, and neither were, like you said, were the critics. I'm amazed that we got to go a second season. But when we did get that pickup for the second season, I think everything started to change. And then by the third season, the rest is history. We'd kind of won everyone over. And apart from some of the diehard original fans who will never like anything but the original, I I think I can safely say that TNG was probably the most successful sci-fi show ever on American television.
I think we can absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
It was, considering where it started from and where it ended, and by the time All Good Things came around, the series finale, yeah. I think everybody had grown. I think the fans had grown with it.
Well, now, I get asked more. People would be more excited, and I know CBS don't want to hear it, but it's, it's actually true. When I go to meet the fans, they're more excited about, will there ever be a TNG reunion? It's like, that's what they want to see. Like they brought the original cast back after 20 years to make the movies. Mm-hmm. I think the fans want that.
I know I do.
See?
I mean,
and you don't have to, I'm not, I know I played at one for 7 years, but I'm not being an empath here. I'm just going on what I hear from the fans, and that is, please tell us that one day there'll be another TNG, and it's like, no, there won't.
Well, if you could say anything to the crew of the USS Discovery, the new show that is already getting so much criticism from the fans, from social media, from the print media, if you could say anything to that crew and what they're going through, what would it be?
Guys, just stick together. We were so blessed on my show. We were filming for months before we got any kind of negativity from the outside. And we were lightning in a bottle. From day one, we just bonded, and we were a Hollywood producer's nightmare. We were a cast who talked to each other. We loved each other, and to this day, 30 years later, we still do. And I can say to my friends, they said this to me, is that the truth? And my friends will say yes or no. And I will do the same for them.
Well,
they need to get together as a cast. And if they really adore each other and work for each other, that's going to come across on the screen, and that's how we won the fans over, and that's how they'll win the fans over, by the chemistry on the screen.
An on-screen family that lives together, dies together, loves together. I love it.
Exactly. We were just a unit. Like I said, every producer's worst nightmare, a cast that were a unit,
Now, in addition to Counselor Troy, you were also the voice behind Demona on the Disney show Gargoyles. And that put you behind the mic also with Jonathan Frakes and Michael Dorn and Brent Spiner and Nichelle Nichols. Kate Mulgrew was there for a while. Was it a little surreal to kind of hear your co-workers on the screen but see them as animated monsters? Well,
funnily enough, I actually don't watch myself when I'm in. I don't watch things that I voice. So I've never seen Gargoyles. More hate mail coming my way. Watch this. I'm just going to have to duck on Twitter. I'm going to have to duck on Twitter. Hate's going to start flying towards me. But what we did, which is hardly ever done when you voice stuff, when we did Gargoyles, we did it like a radio play. We were all in the room together, or as many as they could get in the room together on a Saturday morning. So it was like doing a radio play with my friends and some extra people that I got to know and love. It was so much fun. It was really a lot of fun. I actually don't enjoy really sitting behind a microphone on my own in a sound booth voicing stuff, because for me acting is reacting. I like to look at the person that I'm supposed to be talking to. And so I find it quite difficult, actually, the whole voice thing without other people. So this is probably why I don't do that much of it.
Marina, this is Goose. Now, also in addition to Gargoyles, you worked with John Delancey as part of Alien Voices, and that brought together some more cast members that you previously worked with on Star Trek. What was the experience like voicing those audio dramas of classic literature?
Yeah, that's fun. That is fun, because I had a very classical training, if you like, back in England, back in the Middle Ages when I was at drama school. And so I loved, to me, that, all the parts that, people say to me, what kind of part do you want to play? All the parts that I want to play have already been written, generally, and they tend to be, the classics. So that to me is like really close to my heart. So I really enjoy doing that.
We're speaking to Marina Sirtis here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer on Get Your Geek On. Marina, I'm not going to go into the whole if you could tell your past self one thing, because that's cliche, and I'm sure you've heard that a lot. However, if you could go back and watch one scene being filmed, you're just you're offset, but you're just watching it all unfold. Whether you're in this scene or not, what scene would you want to watch?
Oh, do you know what? As soon as you ask, I'm going to embarrass myself now, but it's the first scene that springs to my mind, and it's in The Child. Now, we have to have a little bit of backstory to this. So, in the first season, I was written out of a lot of shows. If I didn't have a lot of lines in the episode, they would write me out. If the fact that I could sense things was going to spoil the plot, they would write me out. So there I was. I've been given the honor and the privilege of, the first episode of the second season, after a very long writer's strike. I think we've been out for 6 months. And Gene Roddenberry had actually taken me aside at Jonathan and Jeannie's wedding and told me that the first episode of second season, Marina, is a Troy episode, and it's a huge Troy episode, and we just, wanted you to know after everything we went through last year. So it was really important. It's a really, significant, important episode. And there's one scene, and now I'm going to point it out to y'all, and y'all going to see it and laugh. When I'm approaching my child's deathbed, because it had to be very specific, because there was, some special effects stuff going on, I had to be very specific about hitting my mark, and I looked down for it, and it's in there.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And I die with humiliation and embarrassment every time I see that scene.
Now, speaking of a child, the adventures of Riker and Troy continued in the Titans novel series.
Right.
And they actually have a daughter named Natasha.
Right.
In that series. So have you read any of those Titan novels or any of the Star Trek novels?
But again, serendipity, I was in Baltimore last weekend, and I was handed a book by Christopher Bennett called Orion's Hounds, which he wrote, which is a Titan book, and I will be reading that forthwith. So I haven't read them yet, but I'm going to start.
Well, I'm gonna definitely follow your Twitter, because I want to know what your review, your 140 character review, is going to end up being.
Oh, of the book?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, okay. I'm not going to be mean on Twitter. I'm mean enough. Listen, I've been blocked by Donald Trump, so I have to be. I've been blocked by him and Paul Ryan on Twitter.
Well, that's quickly becoming a badge of honor.
I know, isn't it? So I'm just, and I wasn't even that mean. I was just kind of, Marina. Anyway, so yes, I will. I still got to finish. I'll tell you now, the Brothers Karamazov before I start on this book. So it might be a couple of weeks or so.
Fair enough.
Okay.
So two things. If you haven't read it yet, Peter David also wrote a book called Imzadi. And
I've read that. No, I've read that. Yeah. I have read that,
and you and Jonathan Frakes, to the best of my knowledge, are the only two who were in the first episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, 1987, and the last episode of Star Trek Enterprise in 2005.
And I'll tell you a bit of trivia as well.
Ooh, goody. I love trivia.
Jonathan and I were the very last scene stepping off the holodeck. They turned the lights off behind us.
Oh, okay, now I'm all sad now.
I know. I got all kind of goosey when I said it out loud, yeah. So we were there on the very first day of the reboot, Jonathan and I, and we were there at the very end as well.
Well, let's pick this up a little bit. Let's pick up the mood here, because you have a number of projects coming up, including As Greek as It Gets and Fifth Passenger with Tim Russ and Armin Shimmerman.
Right.
Yeah, can you give us kind of a sneak peek into what these films are about and which ones you're most excited for?
Well, As Greek as It Gets is a rom-com. It's not anything to do with sci-fi at all. And obviously Fifth Passenger is a sci-fi. And I play a scientist on it. So I'm doing it now, obviously, that I'm getting into that middle-aged actress bracket. where I've been for quite a while, if I'm actually quite honest about it.
No, come on.
I love that I get to play kind of, not that I wasn't a serious woman playing, as Deanna Troi, but it's like more professional kind of kick-ass women now that I'm a bit older. And so, it's a lot of fun. And also, getting to work with your old pals. I had never worked with Tim Russ before, even though I'd done Voyager. My scenes were always with Dwight Schultz and Bob Picardo. So it was I had worked with Armin when he was a Ferengi in our very first episode. So it was lovely to work with. It's just the sci-fi world is not that big. I mean, it seems big, but it's not that big, especially our little corner of it. And it's like one of the things that I love about conventions. I was saying to Kevin Sussman from Big Bang Theory last weekend. He's kind of new to the convention thing. I said one of the most wonderful things is that you make your convention friends, and you may not see them from convention to convention, but it's always lovely to meet up with them and catch up and spend time, and so it's a great community that we're in. It really is.
Marina Sirtis, actress, voice actress. Fan of the Hotspur FC.
Oh, yes.
we do want to thank you for taking your time out to call in to us here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer on Get Your Geek On. Thank you so much for taking the time out. We are honored and humbled to have you here.
It was lovely talking to you guys, and I have to say, nice interview, man. You really did good.
What? Oh my God, that's it. I'm going to float home. I'm not even going to drive. I'm floating home. Thank you so much, man.
You're welcome. Lovely talking to you.
Have a good night.